These 3 websites were built for the same purpose, to help a business grow online. One costs hundreds of dollars, one costs thousands of dollars, and the other costs more than $10,000. The difference isn't just their appearance. It's about who the business is and what the website does for that company's sales and marketing processes. I've built hundreds of websites for businesses that do 6, 7, and 8 figures a year in revenue, and I've seen firsthand what works at each price point. In this video, I'll show you real examples of websites you can get for each price point and break down exactly what you get when you invest more in your website. So if you've ever wondered why some websites cost more than a car and others less than a phone, this video is for you. I'll also be sure to cover how AI plays into all of this because it's going to make a big impact in the coming years. Websites that cost in the hundreds of dollars are an increasingly viable option for small businesses. Every year, the tech is getting better and easier to use, all while new web designers enter the marketplace at this entry-level price point. I'm going to briefly talk about who this tier of website is a good fit for, what you need to know if you're going to move forward with this type of project, and I'll give you some guidance for the tool you'll be using and the people you'll be working with building this sort of website. And of course, I'll show you examples. So who is this for? These are a great starting point for any sort of small business or side hustle. This is basically the better than nothing level. Getting this type of website built is essentially just checking that box, if that makes sense. You're not going to have any complicated or interactive functionality, but you probably don't need that at this stage. You can have basic e-commerce if you use the right tools, which I'll get into now. Generally, if someone comes to me with a website like this, they're pretty much always built on either WordPress, Weebly, Wix, Squarespace, or Shopify. However, my recommendation to you, and no one's paying me to say this, I promise you, is you should really only be considering either Squarespace or Shopify for this tier of website. WordPress is also a phenomenal tool, but at this price range, it's a little too complicated and you don't really want to be biting off that technical debt. Wix and Weebly, I just do not recommend. I'll leave it at that. Although I've heard some good things about the Wix Studio platform and how that's an up-and-coming platform, I have yet to see anything super impressive come out of it, so I will just leave this recommendation at if you are going to have an e-commerce website in this price range, use Shopify, and if you're going to have any other type of website, use Squarespace. There are also some really promising AI-powered options on the horizon here. The 3 I have my eye on most closely right now are Lovable, Replit, and Reloom. All 3 of which I use at least once a week, but not yet for this use case. I'm including them here because I could see about 6 months from now, if you're watching this video, they could be really viable paths, and I'm sure 6 months from now, there'll be 100 other entrants into the field, but these ones are really close right now, and I think they're worth looking at in a few months. So what kind of website can you expect to receive at this level of service? My commenters on Instagram leave comments with their websites asking them to be included in some of these videos. So I've included a few here that we can look at that I think are representative of this tier of website. So some characteristic things that you're going to see with this type of website is there's not like a really clear consistency. It doesn't look very professional. And in this case, it doesn't look like it's full of bugs and errors, but you can see like the text is clashing with the background image. The fonts are all over the place. There's like random blocks of texts and weird effects when you're scrolling, right? Like it doesn't represent you as a professional organization. It simply checks the box. You have a website live. That's what you've really accomplished here. On this one, you can see that there's, scaling and responsiveness errors with being on a large screen, large blocks of text. It's kind of overwhelming, a little bit busy. This is, again, very typical of what you would see at this tier of website. This is sort of like the better end of what you can expect. They've got nice, clean visuals. They've got a consistent theme going. There's nothing fancy going on here. It's not by any means winning any design awards, but you can confidently go to market with something like this. This company was able to get their website to function properly on mobile. This one was also able to get their website to function mostly correctly on mobile. And this one was not, it seems, but I am on a simulator, so that could be part of the problem. Okay, so if you have less than $1,000 to budget towards your website, here's my advice for you. You're likely hiring a freelancer and not an agency, or you're outsourcing to a country where you can get that kind of work done at a lower cost. In either case, I'm going to make 2 broad generalizations about what you should expect working with this type of entity. First, they are likely going to be entry to mid-level at one of the skills required to make this sort of website. Usually what I found is they're pretty okay at either the tech or the aesthetics, not both. Second, which follows from the first, is you should recognize that you are going to be the leader on this project. You are going to have to quality check everything on different screen sizes, widescreen, small screen, in between. You are going to have to dictate the strategy of how the website should flow and lay out and what the content of the page should be if there's any strategy at all. You will also almost certainly be writing all of the language that goes on all of the pages. You are essentially hiring someone to execute your vision, and you are going to have to spearhead and course correct as needed. Now, there certainly are people that exist that break the mold of what I'm describing, but if you go in with that mindset and that expectation, you'll have a better time. My recommendation to you, if you have a moderate level of technical proficiency, meaning you can go online onto a platform you've never used before and basically figure it out pretty easily most of the time. If that sounds like you and this is your budget level, my advice to you is to try and do it yourself. Go find a template that is 80% what you want. Don't go to any of those other template sites like Theme Forest or Template Monster, whatever. The level of quality control on those platforms is not the same. But find a template that's 80% of what you want and then just don't change it. Those templates are designed by people who are good at design. And chances are, unless you've spent years and years studying design, they're better than you at design. And they're definitely better than you at building websites. So what I recommend to you is follow their template basically exactly. If their banner image is a dark image with the subject matter on the left, well, go find an image like that suits your needs. If there's a text block on the page that has 100 characters, fill it with 100 characters. Don't write a paragraph. Even if there's more you want to say, have ChatGPT reword it and make it shorter for you. Fit what you want to do inside of this template. And is it going to be 100% like the picture in your mind and the perfect picture website? No, but you can get that done at a later stage when you have a bigger budget by someone who knows what they're doing and can make you look good online. For now, if you want to look reasonable and you want to have a pretty good foot forward, just follow the instructions on the box. Tier 2, so you're now spending between $1,000 and $9,999 on a website. Wide variety inside of that range. Different companies and freelancers are going to quote you different things in here, but generally what you need to know at this price tag is you're going for the build me something that doesn't embarrass me. So before, you were in the build me something just so I have something, and now you're buying something that was done properly. It looks pretty good. You can have a higher level of expectation here, and I'll help you define that in a moment. My standard advice for when you want to make this jump from the previous tier to this tier is once you have a reliable source of customer acquisition, so you know you're going to be able to acquire a certain number of customers every week, month, year, whatever, your website becomes one of the levers you can pull that influences the overall throughput of your funnel. In other words, it can help you enhance the efficiency or the closing percentage of your entire sales and marketing system. I'll tell you a story about this from my business to help illustrate the point. My first funnel that I got to work really well for my agency 5 years ago was a process where we responded to various job postings on all these different platforms like Upwork, Dribbble, Behance, whatever. And we just did a super high volume of responses of that method. Now, the interesting quirk to all that funnel, it's great because everybody who's on it is actively looking to hire someone, but the quirk is all of the messaging, they like to, on most of them, keep you locked into their platform. So you can only message back and forth through their chat and you can't send them to any external links. But what we saw in our analytics when we started doing this at a high volume is that we still ended up seeing higher than normal visits to our website. As we ramped this funnel up, more and more of the people we were pitching to were going outside of the platform, Googling us and checking us out on the internet. Just naturally, people were doing the, are these guys legit test? And they went and checked out our website. And we were losing deals because when people came to check out our site, we still looked like that small shop that had the tier 1 website. So counterintuitively, to grease the wheels of this funnel that had theoretically nothing to do with our website, we had to upgrade our website to the one that we had before the one we have now. And that took us from the barely at the 6 figures threshold to the mid to late 6 figures. And it's not what took us to 7, but it was a really essential building block and an important part of our growth. So the differences from the previous tier. First, your business is going to look more established and like a more legit player in your industry. You'll start to see some basic performance optimizations, optimized call to actions, better headline structure, click-to-call functionality, maybe more social proof, that sort of thing. At this level, you can pretty much expect a certain level of thoroughness and SEO boxes checked. Google standards are being upheld at various levels. You're probably not going to be getting perfect scores on every test that you run it through, but there's a baseline level of performance and acceptable standard here. Everything should be working perfectly on all screen sizes. You should be able to take your browser window and go like this, and it should look good at all these screen sizes. So for example, At this tier website, you won't have any moments like this. That would be unacceptable at this budget range. In short, at this tier, you're working with a professional, someone who's been in the industry for several years, maybe a small agency. If you're working with a freelancer, they're pretty good at one or two skills. Typically, it's design and development. Most often, what will still be lacking and on your plate is the strategy and the content writing. At this size of website, I would tell you should be on one of the 3 major platforms and pick it and stick to it and know you're just going to stay there forever. The only 3 real options are WordPress, Webflow, and Shopify. There are absolutely new tools on the horizon like Framer and like the AI tools I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to advise you against trying anything new and shiny at this stage in business. That's because changing your CMS, which is what the name for these systems are called, it's a content management system, WordPress, Webflow, Shopify, these are CMSs, among other things. At this stage, going from tier 1 to tier 2, making that shift, is a pretty light lift. But depending on the way in which you grow, it can get really hairy shifting from tier 2 to tier 3 and changing your platform there. A lot can go wrong during those types of transitions, so you would save yourself some headache by picking a platform now that's going to last you for a really long time. So my advice to you, pick something that's been around for over 10 years, pick something you're never going to have to leave, and just stay there forever. So let's look at some websites that are in this tier. Okay, laundry service. You can see there's like some light animation, some fade-in effects. There's some consistent color scheme, consistent button styles, hover effects. This is like a much nicer, more reasonable experience for a customer, and it makes you look much more professional. Sites of this size, like I mentioned, should also be working perfectly on mobile devices. Here's another one, On's Murmur. This is a totally different type of business, but you can see it's got a very minimal feel to it. There's not a lot going on. This is an absolutely reasonable website. If you went here and you were a prospect, you would not be afraid to do business with them because they might scam you, right? Like that's not the vibe here. This feels like an established company at some level. Before we get to the third tier, quick note, if you're already at the point where you're deciding between a tier 2 or making the leap to a tier 3, that's exactly the kind of decision I help businesses with every day. Your website either keeps up with your sales and marketing or it holds you back. If you want clarity on which way to go, I put a link in the description where you can book a consultation. We'll look at your situation and map out the right level of investment for you. So on to tier 3, websites that cost over $10,000. This level is for companies that have outgrown just having a professional website for when someone goes to check you out. A key trigger for this is when your spend on sales and marketing passes a certain threshold. That's the moment where weaknesses in your website start to cost you real money, either in missed SEO opportunity, lost conversions when people do hit your website, poor brand positioning that sort of limits your pricing power, higher appointment no-show rates from leads who never bought in, and so on. That's why at this level, your website needs to do more than not embarrass you like the previous tier does. It has to actively support the outcomes in your business that you're trying to optimize. It needs to reinforce your brand positioning so you can justify your premium pricing. It needs to handhold and indoctrinate your leads so they show up to your appointments ready to buy. It needs to convert ad spend efficiently and build an SEO foundation that can help you grow. In other words, the website needs to stop being a cost center and start being your best salesperson. It should be a multiplier for every dollar that you spend on your sales and marketing. The list of scenarios here is pretty much infinite, but here are some examples. Professional firms like agencies, finance firms, lawyers, construction firms that are trying to move up market into higher value, larger clients. Suddenly what was passable before no longer makes the impression you need to make when you're trying to impress these bigger fish. A home service company that's scaling their ad spend, trying to improve the conversion rate of visitors who land on their website that actually turn into leads. Or maybe like a SaaS product where the website is not just part of the sales and marketing, but it's also sort of the front door to the product. First, from an aesthetic perspective, the website is going to be designed a lot more intentionally. Whereas before we were just trying to look professional and presentable, here we're making a conscious effort to present ourselves in a particular way that matches how we want a customer to perceive the brand. For example, if we want our product to feel simple and easy to use, the design of our website might have a lot of white space and a minimal vibe. If we wanted our customers to think of us as cutting edge and forward thinking, we would use different fonts, colors, motifs, patterns, textures. The site would have a different vibe to it. It's no longer just about looking good. It's about curating our customers' opinions. The next big difference from the previous tier is user journey. In these websites, we're being very thoughtful about what we present to a user and in what order. Cool sidebar about this. Think about grocery stores. If you've been in person to a bunch of different grocery stores in your life, you may have noticed that they all have a fairly similar layout to them. There's a typical path that they know a consumer is most likely to walk when they get to the store. They show you the checkout first, so you know where to go when you're ready to complete the transaction. They show you the flowers and the produce next, so you get a feeling of freshness as you navigate through the rest of the store that kind of like sticks with you, and it affects the lens through which you see everything else. And then of course they show you the bread next, and if you're hungry at the grocery store, we all know what happens, you spend more money. Now you in particular may not follow that path every single time you go to the store, but that's okay because the grocery store owner knows that that's the most likely path that a human being is going to take when they walk into a new store. Most people will go left when they walk in the door, so they structure the architecture of the building and the planning all around the most likely path to improve the average order value of the system as a whole. Websites in this tier do that. A few other differences. At this tier, you should expect copywriting to be done for you. It should be clear, concise, and convincing. In markets where it's appropriate, the website might be optimized to drive traffic from search engines. And increasingly in 2025, they should be optimized for AI tools like Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity. The imagery at this tier should be chosen thoughtfully, either to enhance the brand perception or to enhance the user's understanding of what they're reading about or learning about on the page. There might be more strategic use of video assets on these pages. Generally, you won't have to direct the project of getting it built so much at this tier. To the degree that you don't get in their way, the professional will usually at this tier, they will guide you on how to design your website like a grocery store, to go back to that analogy from earlier. You will also start to see some custom sites at this tier, meaning they're not built on any of these CMSs, or maybe they are, but there's a headless architecture. Don't worry about what any of that means if that's not important to you right now. You also might, if you're using Shopify, start to see Shopify Plus, which is Shopify's like premium tier of service. So those are the three tiers, from the starter websites that get you online, to the middle tier that makes you look a little bit more professional, and to the third tier that is like a full-blown marketing engine that supports your brand from end to end. Each tier is right for a different type of business at a different stage in their growth journey. If you're at the point where you're weighing between that second and third tier that I was discussing, don't leave it to guesswork. Book a consultation through the link below, and we'll get you sorted with the path that makes the most sense for your business right now and in the future. See you next time.